Warning: this program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions. With your host, Berserker, this is Unshackled Fury.
The Warcraft universe is expanding, interviews about our next destination continue to pour in, and the future of our beloved franchise continues its evolution. So welcome back to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions, Unshackled Fury. I'm your host, Berserker. This is episode 108. And on today's show, we're discussing the newly announced Warcraft Arclight Rumble mobile game, thumbing through more recent Dragonflight interviews, taking a quick look at some patch 9.2.5 changes, and looking ahead to new Warcraft literature on the horizon. But first, happy 17th. Happy 17th anniversary to Leroy Jenkins. The Leroy Jenkins video, the first meme-worthy thing ever. My God, if you play World of Warcraft, I hope you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, get out there, watch it right now. Leroy Jenkins and his epic quest for fame, glory, and at least he has chicken. Yeah, it's kind of a funny thing to have this so far away, but yet feels still, part of our everyday Warcraft existence. There's achievements, right, connected to Leroy Jenkins. You can go to the place where his event actually happened. There's a whole thing. So I just wanted to throw a quick shout out to the legend that is Leroy Jenkins. A happy 17th anniversary to that video coming out. And again, if you haven't seen it for yourself, or maybe if it's been a while, go back and check it out. It is a classic for a reason, and much beloved around these parts. So, like I said in the intro, there is some pretty fun stuff to cover today, including a new game, much speculation about what was going to happen there, and finally we know. But first, I've heard some complaints that the Let's Rage portion of this show has been a little too jokey, not enough seriousness. So I'll tell you what, I got one for you this week. I got a real one for you this week. So why don't we jump into it? Let's go. Let's Rage. As we have been monitoring on this show over the last several years in earnest, I've been keeping an eye on Activision Blizzard to see how they either are or are not cleaning up their house, as has been well documented and discussed at length on this show. There have been very serious allegations of discrimination and harassment, and there are lawsuits, one of which I believe is about to get settled, and there's been back and forth between the federal government and California state government, and who gets to own the Blizzard at the end in terms of assessing fines and punishments and all that kind of jazz. So we've been keeping an eye on all of those things, but more locally, right? More locally, trying to also keep an eye on not just what's going on in the real world, but what's happening in game. What are we experiencing as players or what is happening in our sphere that's making life better? What's making things better for us? Sometimes there are changes that have to do with gameplay, making the game better. Sometimes there are things about the environment. Some of them are hits, some of them are misses, and we've got probably one of the latter on our hands coming up soon. So in patch 9.2.5, there is currently on the PTR a social contract. Something that is akin to something that you may have seen on other maybe work-related equipment that you may have worked on. When you log in and you are prompted with some sort of screen saying something. Well, this social contract that Blizzard is testing out for World of Warcraft has to do with something that we will encounter as we log in to the game starting in that patch. And so what will happen is you will log in and this pop-up screen will prompt you, and I'm just going to read to you essentially what this says. Hail, traveler, and welcome to the World of Warcraft. Azeroth is a living world full of people like you. Other players with different backgrounds, cultures, experiences, and histories who have all come together to play World of Warcraft. Every player deserves to have a world that they feel safe in, so please take a minute to read our social contract. And so in this social contract, it says, when you're in Azeroth, do your best to connect with other players and make friends. Play as a team with your fellow players. Assist other players that you encounter in the world, and help answer questions others have in chat channels like General or Trade. There's a little bit more language to that, but I'm kind of getting the quick hits here. The second part of it is, we recognize that the internet is not always a safe haven. No shit. With that in mind, please note that the following behaviors are not accepted in Azeroth. Hate speech, including negative comments that target another player's identity, including aspects like race, gender, or ability. Harassment, threats, or abusive/derogatory language and behaviors. Spamming, advertising, or other disruptive behaviors. If you harm your fellow adventurers with any of the above behaviors, you are subject to punishment up to and including suspension of your account. And then it says, it's a big world, be respectful, we want this to be a safe home away from home. Now, on its surface, great, wonderful. You see this, all right, I've got it in the back of my mind. I shouldn't be a shitbag and do all these things when I'm playing Warcraft. And then you have an option once you've read this, or if you've read this, to either accept the terms, accept the contract, or exit the game. I don't accept it. Now, there is a saying about best intentions. And I believe that this social contract is being done with the best of intentions. But the road to hell is paved with the best of intentions. And that's kind of what I think we have here. Is this ultimately will do absolutely nothing. I don't believe it will change anything. I don't think it will do anything. If you're an asshole, you're going to click accept no matter what. This isn't going to give you a moment of pause. As I referenced earlier, I get something similar to this from my IT department when I log into my laptop at work. It says, this is for official use only. Does that stop me from logging into HBO Max and watching The Sopranos on my lunch break? Hell no, it doesn't. It does not at all. If you treat people like shit, is this going to stop you from doing that in World of Warcraft? Absolutely not. So, unfortunately, I feel like this is one of those things where on the surface it looks good, but this isn't really going to accomplish anything. if you want to affect change in this way, then what Blizzard should be doing, which I don't know, I assume that they're doing something related to this, is beefing up the complaint department, right? When you write in or file a complaint and say, hey, this person's saying some awful, racist, horrible shit out here. Can you please do something about that? That there's actually enough humans to deal with that problem. Because that's ultimately how you weed these people out. You don't just do it by character, right? You do it by account. You know, you track names, addresses, all that stuff. You know, they have all these metrics. They have all this information. And if someone is a complete piece of crap, you make sure they don't come back. Suspensions, varying degrees within, but it's having an active human presence. That's what's going to make a change here. This contract, I hate to be so rude, but you can wipe your ass with that contract. It doesn't do a thing. Well-intentioned, but not gonna do it. And that alone, I think, is just shabby on one hand, and that would be enough to be like, oh, Blizzard, you're on kind of the right path, but this is not the right execution. Well, then we had another part of this which popped up, which is that King, because Activision Blizzard King, right? It's the whole shebang. They put out this diversity space tool, and there was a blog post about how, again, well-intentioned. We are trying to, right, they as a company, we are trying to create an inclusive environment. We're trying to make sure, and as somebody who apparently is the base model, straight, white, middle-class male, right? I'm the 0 point in the scale here. I own that totally. That you're trying to ensure that you have characters and games that are more reflective of the diversity of our world, because you better believe with billions of people on this planet, there's a lot of different types of folks out there. And people, when they play these games, want to have the opportunity to see themselves represented. Just like I have my entire life. And that's awesome. The problem is, and here's where we're looking at this, is that King had partnered with the MIT Game Lab to essentially try to break diversity down into data points. So you have culture, race, age, cognitive ability, physical ability, body type, facial features / beauty, gender identity, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic background. To try to take those data points and decide, well, how many points is being black worth? How many points is being Indian worth? How many points is being straight, gay? Maybe you identify in some way that's not on this chart. I guess you're just not represented at all. Right? You can see immediately how there are problems in terms of placing point values into whose diversity is worth more. That's a very dangerous thing. And so they put out this big blog post about, hey, look at all this. Look how great this is. We're going to be rolling this out across the studio, the whole thing. And predictably, people jumped in on that like, whoa, this is a terrible idea. What are you guys doing? Like, clearly, having a diverse team, that's awesome. So hire and get applicants for jobs from a wide variety of stuff. And that's how you build your team out, right? You got to do it from the ground up. This, ooh-wee. Now you're just pitting people against each other in a way that is not good. And so then Blizzard sends out a bunch, I weep for the PR people. They have to put out statements saying, whoa, we jumped the gun, and this is just a beta. No one's really using this over on Overwatch or Blizzard or whoever, and, it's just something we're kicking around. And again, shooting themselves in the dick when they're trying to do something good. They're on the road to try to create a better environment, but the execution, once again, just completely undermines all of the potential good that might be happening here. So, God, I swear, Blizzard, stop it. Ugh. Every time, it's like 2 steps forward, 9 steps back. And admittedly, again, as the straight, white, middle-class male who has, fairly decent cognitive and physical abilities, even still at this point in my life. Right? Like, I tread lightly here because I'm not affected by this personally in ways that other people are. Nonetheless, I can still see how bad these ideas are and how they are not going ultimately to really help in the ways that they're intended to. So Blizzard, please, I know you listen to this, all you honchos there on the board. I know you listen to this program religiously. Please take a second. Audit these ideas if you must, to really decide if the things that you're doing are actually going to have the intended impact in a positive way, or whether we're basically just trying to do it for show, and now we're going to get called out on our shit and look even worse. So that's my request. I hope that they can find some better ways to do this, but for now, I am going to laugh when I see the social contract. I'm sorry, that just, it's, again, well-intentioned, but I don't believe that it's actually going to have any true impact. And this tool, this diversity space tool, need to go back to the drawing board. Get some new drawing implements on that one. So aside from these two debacles, we do have some other awesome stuff to talk about. Beginning with a brand new entry into the Warcraft universe of games. So let's get into it. For the last several years, it was, even before they announced it officially that there was something in the works, it was a given that there would be a mobile title in the Warcraft universe eventually. Yes, Diablo Immortal, the rollout for that, the BlizzCon panel, poor Wyatt Chang, do you guys not have phones? Like that whole deal. Yeah, that's what a lot of people will remember, and in some ways rightfully so. But the truth is, the future is mobile. I'm a PC Master Race person, right? I was a console person when I was a kid and a teenager and right up until my very early 20s. And then I realized the power of the PC, and I've never looked back. But even I can take a look at this and go, worldwide, if I'm a business, mobile is where it's at. And right now, Blizzard doesn't really have anything, right? It hasn't happened yet. We have Hearthstone, which is great. So maybe I should say Warcraft specifically, right? Warcraft hasn't had anything. We have the mobile app. And the Hearthstone stuff is kind of like ancillary lore, but it's not official. At least I don't believe. If it is, shit, I'm way behind. So Warcraft is a franchise that is ripe for a mobile title, given the history, the RTS origins, all of that. And we've heard rumors over the years about what they could be doing, what might be happening. For the longest time, and I know I'm partially right about this, I believed that Corey Stockton, if you remember him, Mumper, who got wrapped up in the Cosby Suite saga and seems to have disappeared since, but I assume he's still around. I and several others were of the belief that he was somewhere in the lab working on a Pokemon Go style game for Warcraft using battle pets or something like that. That's what I've been writing this entire time. I've heard other rumors about different things, but that was the one. I'm like, that one makes the most sense. Pokemon Go, still very popular. People still play it. I play it on vacation. And wouldn't it be great if I could go out there and use it with all my Warcraft stuff? That would be fantastic. So then we heard, all right, it's coming. The official announcement is on the way. We are going to find out for real what mobile title will be coming to the Warcraft universe. And down at the last second, we found out that there were two possibilities. One was the Pokemon Go style game, Warcraft Go, whatever you want to call it, that I thought it was going to be. And the second was what it ended up ultimately being, which is Warcraft Arclight Rumble. The rumor was that there was the Pokemon Go style game, and then there was this game, this tower defense, Clash of Clans style game where, you know, it's fast paced, strategy driven. You're gonna have to do all these different things during the rounds of play or course of play. And it was seemingly confirmed. Jason Schreier, other folks talked about how the Warcraft Go, Pokemon Go style game was in the works, but was canceled earlier this year. Now, my understanding of the development and how it works around these parts is that it was likely that a choice had to be made and presentations were probably given about which one was going to be more viable, costs, feedback, what were people having fun with inside the Blizzard studios, right? Because they get to test this stuff out way before we ever see it. And you've heard a lot of good things from a lot of different people about, it sounds like at least the Arclight Rumble. I'm sure the other one was good too, because I don't know how it couldn't be. But Arclight Rumble is where we're at. So we finally got the official announcement video. Came with a cinematic, which was a bit of a different style. The characters that we're looking at, they're like minis. If you ever play the like a traditional tabletop game, right? Little minis that you could paint and all this stuff. It was sort of, the vision is the characters are like those little minis, and they're battling, and you see an alliance soldier, and you see this gnome going apeshit, and you see an orc, right? And you see them battling with some gnolls and other things. Well, it turns out that we have a game where you are going to be able to collect more than 60 of these little minis, these little characters. Where's my Varian one? I didn't see it, but God, I hope it happens. I don't know if they all have to be alive in current canon. I don't see why they have to be. I mean, we could pick all kinds of people. So get it done, people. Get it done. Find it. But there will be 60 of these minis that will be collectible, and you will choose, it looks like, as the sort of leader of the army that you will build for the map that you are going to play on. And within that army, you will have 5 playable races: Alliance, Horde, Beast, Undead, and Blackrock Clan. If you remember Blackrock from your Warcraft lore, go look it up if you don't. And you will have these armies essentially playing across a map where you will have different abilities. You'll have a base to defend. You'll be attacking, looks like some sort of a boss or something on the other end. There will be little baddies coming at you down lanes on the map, and you're gonna have to try to attack and defend, and get mining nodes for extra resources, or you can control certain points on the map where you'll be able to put different implements where you can shoot at stuff or blow stuff up or zap things with magic. All sorts of strategies will be in play. They showed a demonstration of how it's done, and I appreciated the honesty that they showed the 2 devs on this one doing a gameplay, and the guy lost on the first one. I was like, yeah, well, it does take a little bit of skill. I appreciated that they showed the fuck up on that one, and then went and showed how it's actually done, where you have to think about what strategies are you going to use to employ the resources that you have to either clear out one lane and shoot up another, or which baddies are you going to let come down the lane and attack you? What can you withstand? There were some other facts and figures that were given, that there will be over 70 single-player missions, so that there's a pretty big PvE style campaign. There will be dungeons, there will be raids, you'll be able to play in co-op, you'll be able to play PvP. Again, over 60 heroes, villains, and other characters that you'll be able to collect. As somebody who is a sucker, a complete sucker for collectible items, I'm sure that that's going to suck me in. But they talked about taking this back to the roots of Warcraft, where you're going to be having to unleash a bit of strategy using what you've got and looking at the map and trying to figure out where you need to go and what you need to do. So I saw that at least a couple of videos were out there showing gameplay and what it looks like. I can't adequately describe, if you haven't seen it, what it looks like, so I would encourage you to go out. It's easy to find Arclight Rumble. You'll find the videos of what it looks like, but pretty standard stuff where on a phone display, it's that long vertical sort of map. There's a ton of them apparently, and you'll be going from, it looks like bottom up. Maybe there's other ones, left to right or down to bottom. I don't know. That was all that they showed. So right away, I can tell you that this is probably not for me. It looks interesting, but it didn't quite grab me the way that I was hoping that it would. Now, again, this is early. This is a first look. We have no release dates. We have, I think, a beta sign up at this point, but that's it. It's still early, and there's still a ways to go, but it didn't quite hit that groove in my brain just yet. In some subsequent interviews, they talked about how it won't be pay to win. There's not going to be loot boxes, that sort of thing. I don't know. It'll remain to be seen how that ends up playing out. But I was not as hyped about this once I saw it as I was hoping I would be. Now, the collectible thing, like I said, that will definitely get me. And the truth is, of course I'll play it. Anything from Blizzard, I absolutely will play it. But let's be real, folks. Let's be real. That's real talk. There's some real talk on here. Where are you playing on your phone the most? Maybe at your desk. Maybe on the bus. Maybe on a subway. But definitely when you're in the bathroom. I know people like to hide it and pretend like you don't do it. You definitely do it. You definitely do it. You're flipping through the gram and the Twitters and the Facebook. Maybe doing some work emails. Maybe you're like some of the dudes I used to see in the office, taking calls and watching videos. That's pretty bold, in my opinion, especially when there's a flush in the background on a call. How do you explain that? I don't know. But they will have a captive audience, and you'll have a captive audience in me at various points in my day. And so, if, as is advertised, this Arclight Rumble game is easy to play but difficult to master, you might make a fan out of me. You might. You just might. Now, on the opposite end of this, I showed this to my son, and he thought it was one of the greatest fucking things he's ever seen. And that right there, I think, is the perfect dichotomy of what we're looking at in terms of generational divide and why Activision Blizzard is looking more into the mobile titles, because that's where the young'uns are, and that is going to be your target audience. Now, I sit squarely in the 18 to 49 demographic, right? I'm still part of major advertising budget dollars to get my attention, but there is very much a change in focus, a shift in focus from generation to generation in terms of where their entertainment lies. And for the younger generation, mobile's where it's at. And I think this has the potential, Arclight Rumble has the potential to be very, very popular. If it is, as they say again, easy to play but difficult to master, it will get people in the door, but it will keep them there to try to complete these challenges. And they talked about not just raids and dungeons, but weekly challenges. New things coming up all the time, new maps. I'm sure that they will add characters over time. The art department, they definitely have a singular vibe and a look that they're going for. And it has unlimited potential, honestly. There are hundreds, thousands of characters that you could pull from in the Warcraft universe. And if you give them a cool kit, they could be anybody. It could be any nameless, storyless drone from any corner of Azeroth and beyond. But if you give them a cool kit, people are like, yeah, I love playing that peon from what's that village? Like that guy's badass. He's got a big hammer and he can smash dudes and like clear a lane, the whole thing. It could go on. So we'll see. Now I hope that I can get in, even though, listen, admittedly, I'm not one of the most hyped people, and I don't think that I'm the target audience for this. I am hoping to get in on a beta. If I could get in on a beta on this, I could give you my actual impression, my hands-on impressions of this, and maybe that'll change. I am somebody who I tend to be skeptical of certain things. Blizzard gets, even after all the shit I've talked and after all the things that have happened, Blizzard still gets a pretty wide berth from me in terms of initial criticism because I'm hopeful that things will be good. I want things to be good. I want them to knock this out of the park. Not because I necessarily want more mobile games, but I really want a win for the people that work on this and build this, because that is the kind of wave that they need to be able to ride to be successful. I don't think that if you have a team that's just constantly getting shit on, that you're going to get great product. I honestly, I think that's part of where World of Warcraft has suffered, because it's just endless vitriol. And that can't be good. If there's a love fest and people are feeling good and supported about what they're doing, and there's real tangible work behind that, I think that makes a big difference. And so we'll see. But Arclight Rumble, over 60 collectible characters, 70 missions, cooperative missions, build your armies, test them out, triumph over challenges near and far. No release date yet, but it is on the table. And the Warcraft universe continues to expand with its first, honest to God, mobile title. So we shall see. In the Dragonflight bit of news, now we've been getting tons of Dragonflight news. The interviews have been coming in. I've never seen so many interviews. I am happy but dumbfounded at the same time. I don't know if this is just the era of more transparency, where things were so quiet for so long that they were like, now's the time when maybe we ought to get out there some more. So there have been, we talked about before, Manny over on For Azeroth. He had a great interview with Steve Denuser. There's been, an interview with Brian Holinka, Swolinka / Stony Tony. He talked to Bajira. There were other ones. And since then, there are a few others that I wanted to touch on. One being Des Mephisto, former guest on this fine program. Got a chance to sit down for a cinematic development interview with Taryn Gregory and Mark Messenger. And I have to say, I'm a bit jealous because that is a very rare opportunity to get those two in the same room. And Des had a great conversation with them, got some great information, because the cinematics are something that are so iconic to Blizzard and, of course, the World of Warcraft franchise. But we don't, I feel like, know a lot about them, how they're built, decisions that are made, how does that work, time frames. That's always something I've really wondered about. And this interview had a good deal of a deep dive into that. They talked about how originally they, or didn't expect that people would know or have a high degree of confidence that Dragons, Dragonflight, Dragon Isles were going to be the next expansion. So when they started out, the reason why one of the reasons why it sounds like the cinematic for Dragonflight is the way it is because they were trying to hold the dragon reveal back. And so going into it, let's say you went into it totally blind, you're like, what in the fuck am I watching? What is this, a guy and he's closing a tower? Like, is this an old god thing? Is this a Titan? Oh my god, dragons! Right? Like that was the intended effect, but I think we kind of ruined that a little bit. Listen, you can't fool us too long, and people did actually get this one right. But they talked about sort of the creation of how they choose those elements of what we see, whether or not we have kind of a proxy where you have Stony Tony there as the character who is experiencing what's going on in the Dragon Isles, and that he's the individual that's there to open things up and welcome them in. Also with the banner holder when Sylvanas has the Mont-Garra with Saurfang, right? That individual is there to sort of be kind of our proxy in a way, so that somebody can be there to hear what Sylvanas had to say. There was also discussion about Dragonflight itself and the intention that they have for the vibe of the expansion, which I thought was kind of neat, in that I've said this, I know a few other people have said this, and it sounds like we're all on the mark, is that there is very much a Mists of Pandaria vibe about Dragonflight, in that it's going to be about the dragons and their issues that they've got going on, you know, with their history, with this place that they're returning to, all of that. But it's free, it sounds like, at least initially, of the cosmic threats and the big wars and all of this really heavy stuff that we've been experiencing, the afterlife. All this really heavy stuff that we've been dealing with the last number of expansions, and that this is an opportunity to come back and experience this sort of more localized conflict, if you will, and something that is going to promote exploration and more condensed storytelling, as opposed to just this unwieldy thing that we've been experiencing between Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands, and just the wild places that took us to. But this interview was really great. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, they also go into, again, the timelines, which I was always interested in, and how, you know, a year plus out, they're looking at these things, and how where they start isn't necessarily where they end, and how, because Terran Gregory has been the in-game cinematic guy, right? Wrathgate was the first big one for him. And since then, they've evolved and changed those in-game cinematics, where now oftentimes they have us, the player character, like involved in that, right? You can see your character in that, and how that's evolved over time, and what that looks like. So a really cool interview. Dez did a great job. So if you haven't had that, I encourage you to check it out. Another one, which, shit, I never thought I would see, was Asmongold, of all people, interviewing Ian Hazzikostas. And I thought it was, you know, pretty straight up. Questions about dragon riding in combat, master looter, the classic scene, and referencing the thing that caught the most traction was asking about the sword of Silithus, and Ian goes, wait, what sword? All in all, pretty straightforward, honestly. You know, I think this is one of those ones that maybe people were worried, like, oh shit, is he going to say something or something going to happen? I think it's more likely to happen if somebody comes on this show. I'm probably more likely to do something dumb. But I thought Asmongold handled it fine, pretty straightforward, obviously asking questions that his audience is going to want to hear. You know, PvP was also a part of this as well. Again, not that long. All these interviews tend to be 30 minutes or less, so it wasn't this super long, wide-ranging type of thing. But again, if you're interested in those kinds of elements, definitely check that one out. And then probably the most in-depth one that I saw, certainly the most wide-ranging, and a new format, was a developer roundtable with Ian and Steve Denuser with Taliesin and Evitel over Twitter Spaces. And Twitter Spaces, if you don't know, it's this kind of platform that you can use on Twitter to have discussion, and I've seen some really cool ones more recently with some of the conflict, the war going on in Ukraine, people getting together and having conversation about some of that. But this was, of course, not that heavy at all. This was much, much better. And they got into more of the lore that we're going to be looking at in Dragonflight, talking about the Drakthir and talking about some of the story elements that we're going to be looking at. And one of the things that I appreciated hearing was that they seem to have an end in mind. This isn't just some open-ended thing, let's blow up a tree and not know what to do. No, it sounds very much like they have an end in mind, that it's going to have an intended emotional effect upon us. So that's great. They confirmed no mission table in Dragonflight. As somebody who has not touched it in Bastion for, I don't know, 6 months? 6 months plus. I'm good with that. I'm happy with that. I'll go collect followers and whatnot on Arclight Rumble. I don't necessarily need them here. So that one, a good, as always, entertaining. Talius and Avatel, I think they do a great job. They ask a variety of great questions. And again, I recommend taking some time, sitting down and listening to it if you haven't done that already. Other things coming out, discussion with Steve Denuser about Wrathion. Wrathion is going to feature very prominently in Dragonflight, it appears, but there's questions as to what exactly is he doing. We didn't see him in the Dragonflight reveal, which I was kind of hoping, based on some of the rumors on what the cinematic was going to be. There were some pretty cool ones that people totally faked that would have involved Wrathion, but here he is, Mr. Sexy, looking all cool. And where is he? What is he doing? And it's him. It sounds like, anyway. He's going to be reckoning with the legacy. Talk about legacies in Dragonflight. The legacy of the Black Dragonflight, where at one time he was trying to be the last and free of corruption Black Dragon, and we had to go out at one point and kill other members of the Black Dragonflight, if you recall. And then he was scheming during Mists of Pandaria. He ate a heart that had Titan powers, if you remember that. And that's where he saw visions, I believe, is when he saw visions of Legion. The Legion was returning, and that was a pretty big deal. But there's been more discussion recently about how we're going to be encountering him as he travels across the Dragon Isles and is reckoning with, as the son or offspring of Neltharion. Where does that put him? Because right now the Black Dragonflight decimated, right? And there is it him? Is it Ebonhorn? Is it somebody else? There really aren't a lot of options that we're aware of. He was looking for the Dragon Isles last we saw him, and it seems like he probably would have come in about the same time as everybody else once Stony Tony did his job and lifted that veil of clouds. And I'm sure he must have felt something. They said, oh, shit, here it is. Let's go. And so for a very complicated character, at least as far as Warcraft goes, in terms of his origins, his place in the universe, this continues to shape up to be probably one of the most interesting threads that we're going to be pulling on in Dragonflight. And Wrathion has been a confusing character at times, where, kind of anti-hero. What's going on? Are we supporting him? Is he trying to screw us over? He has this friendship with Anduin, and Anduin's about to make some interesting choices himself, and where he might factor in the future, that could be maybe a connection later on. That will be interesting to see. But this interview was that I'm looking at is with Forbes that Steve Denuser had, and shining a light into Wrathion and where he's going. Highly encourage you to check that out as well. Now, the last thing I wanted to throw out here was actually an article from Wowhead that goes back almost 3 weeks now. Probably it'll be about 3 weeks by the time you hear this, 3 weeks plus. But it was a good breakdown into who the big bad of Dragonflight could be. Because as we know right now, we don't know who the big bad will be. We've been told that there is or there will be, but that it will be revealed later. It's a similar reference again, as it was in Mists of Pandaria, where we didn't know that it was Garrosh, right? That wasn't quite on the table yet. And so there's a good breakdown here about potential candidates. Galakrond, who was a giant dragon that I think you've only encountered as a skeleton at this point in World of Warcraft. But Galakrond's story, along with the dragon aspects, is very important. I'm sure one of our fine lore podcasts is diving into the relationship between Galakrond, the dragon aspects, and Tyr, the Titan Tyr. So there's some discussion about Galakrond. The old gods. Could this be a not old god expansion? That is certainly what I'm thinking it is. It just feels like that's where we're going. Deathwing. Could Deathwing somehow be resurrected? I don't know. The Twilight Dragonflight. We saw them back in Kata. Could they be involved? Could be. Murozond and the Infinite Dragonflight. Also a very good candidate. Murozond, if you recall, is the corrupted version of Nosdormu, the leader of the Bronze Dragonflight. It has to do with time. And that I think, if the order goes right, you could have Murozond, but the old gods are behind it. Like that's kind of the vibe that I'm feeling and following here. But we've got some time. I do think that, they'll get to it. They'll start dropping those hints because they can't help themselves and they love us. They want us to know, but not know. We love the wink. So we'll see. We'll see. But that was a really good article. Recommended. Dragonflight will have a big bad villain. Who could it be? Check it out over on Wowhead, and would love to know your thoughts myself. Even closer to our point in time, we've had some updates about patch 9.2.5, and not just a code of conduct that everyone's going to click through and not pay attention to. There is going to be an experiment coming. An experiment on us, not just on dragons. They're finally going to experiment on us, the players. And it's going to be an interesting take on bad luck protection for loot. So there's a blue post about this that goes into greater detail, but the gist of it is that starting in, a handful of months, they're saying that it's going to be Season 4. So if you don't know about the seasons, I pay attention to PvP because they talk about the seasons, right? And it's typically a handful of months that will comprise a season in World of Warcraft, and it's not necessarily tied to a patch. Those are two separate things. So looking at, I believe, Season 4, so that will be tied sometime around 9.2.5, but not necessarily. Wowhead claims that it's Season 3. But at some point, we're going to get a quest, and it'll be a 3-part quest line where you are going to be tasked with going into one of the 3 raids that we've been going into this expansion. We've got Castle Nathria, and we've got Sanctum of Domination, and we've got Sepulchre of the First Ones. And by killing 30, 20, and 10, what they're calling fated bosses, you will be given a currency. And this currency, a puzzling cartel dinar, will be usable to purchase a specific item from the raid of your choosing. And they're specifically even further targeted towards those really hard to get items like weapons, trinkets. There'll be some other stuff, but listen, weapons as a Fury Warrior, that's the big one. Weapons and trinkets and a few other things, the hard to get but impactful items. And we will only get 3. Not 3 a week, not 3 a month, but 3 total. That's it. You will be able to earn your 3, and you can exchange them for the piece of gear that you want. And then there will be a vendor for each raid. Once you have spent your 3, you will no longer see those vendors. They will go, and their gear will go with them. You will earn these dinar for gear that is at normal level, but while you are raiding, let's say, heroic or mythic, you will also be gathering shards. These shards that will come off of the fated bosses at the same time, where you will then be able to, let's say if you're doing heroic and you get whatever 20 shards, you'll be able to upgrade that piece of gear that you spent your dinar on to a heroic or a mythic version if you're doing mythic. So you don't have to, let's say, earn a dinar for a normal piece of gear and then go farm for your heroic shards. No, you can farm for your heroic or mythic shards while you are earning your kills on the fated bosses. Each raid will be featured 1 week at a time. So that means it'll cycle through. 1 week, let's say it'll be Nathria, 1 week it'll be Sanctum, and then 1 week it'll be Sepulchre, and it'll go through that cycle. So if you are, on current content, yeah, you're gonna have to wait a little bit between those cycles. But what an interesting experiment this is, and they're pretty straight up about saying, we're gonna try something. This is based on player feedback because we all understand what it's like to go months and months and months of raiding the same boss and not getting your drop. And we want to try a new form of bad luck protection. I think this is a really good experiment because we're getting close to the silly season of Warcraft. We're in between expansions. All the major things have been done. All the raid for world first, race for world first, that's all done. People, for the most part, have gotten what they want. Some teams, like my team, we're trying to finish up our rating several months past when, some of the higher level teams are done. But I think this is a wonderful experiment to try because all of us have experienced it where we haven't gotten that piece of gear. And then what happens? You move on or it's done and then you just never get it. And that doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel good. And so they're going to try this new experiment. And listen, I was somebody who thought Shards of Domination was an interesting shot in the dark at something. Did it suck? Did everybody hate it? Yeah, pretty much. But anytime there's a way like this to ensure that you've earned, let's say, maybe some bad luck protection, I think the player base is going to go for this. And to be able to not have to time gate this in a way where, let's say you get your normal piece and then you have to farm for however long to get your heroic piece. And so it takes forever, right, to get that piece of gear. We're talking months and months with a 3-week cycle between raids. Now you're speeding that up a little bit. And so, yeah, maybe it's 3 weeks, maybe it's 6 weeks, whatever it is, that you're able to build up the currency that you need to get that one piece of gear. Like for me, as a Fury Warrior, again, having two-handers, that's tough because they don't always drop. Or you're waiting for that one trinket that when you do the Sims, that one trinket just blows every other one out of the water, but it's the hardest one to get. Well, now you can get that. And especially for teams like mine, where we are, we try to get ahead of the curve, but we are often behind the curve when it comes to finishing things within a certain time frame. This kind of bad luck protection is huge for a team like us, where let's say 1 week we can get, let's say even a majority of our members get a huge upgrade on a weapon or a trinket or something else, and we all come into that raid that week and have a bright, shiny new piece that's going to make it a huge difference for us. That may be enough that puts us past that kill that we're stuck on and on to the next, or able to clear the whole thing. So I'm really excited about this. I can't wait to see it play out in practice. I'm sure there'll be some tweaks here and there, but in this way, I think 9.2.5 is gonna be a good time, and I'm looking forward to this experiment, and hopefully it rings true enough in its value that they'll carry it forward into Dragonflight. Now, the last thing for this episode that I wanted to bring to your attention is that we have had announced, although we don't have a name, that a Dragonflight novel has appeared on the Amazon store. Typically, as I like to talk about on this show, there is a novel that accompanies whatever new expansion we have on the horizon. Sylvanas was a little bit different, where this one came in actually during an expansion. But typically we have some sort of novel that sets the stage for what's to come in the content we are about to play through. And what's of particular interest is the, at least for now, release date that is on this posting, which is currently November 22nd of this year. We don't currently know when Dragonflight is slated to come out. There are folks that are hoping it is going to be this year, Christmas Miracle, but I don't know that that is practical. And with a book with a current release date of November, late November of 22, I do think that puts us probably into the February, March 23 release date window. Is that ideal? Not my favorite. Probably not anybody else's. But if that's what it takes to get us in the right spot on a release date, I'm not going to complain. We also know in the current climate, and we just saw this happen to another big game recently, dates are changing. There have been so many games with so many release dates that have been moved. I can't even count them. And where it was once an anomaly and people got slammed for it, ever since Cyberpunk, which I love it, but I will be the first to tell you that rollout was horrible. And that is the stigma that that franchise is going to be stuck with maybe forever. When if they'd have pushed it out to an appropriate time, the narrative would be different. So for now, we're looking at a late 22 book release related. We could then be getting the expansion early in 23. I think a lot of folks are expecting that. There is also another book that's coming out. The Exploring Azeroth Northrend book is now available for purchase, and they have a cover for it. A series that has been maligned as of late for not exactly having the best representation. And even Blizzard, I believe it was Steve Denuser, did acknowledge in a recent interview that they missed the mark on that one. But they're looking to, in the next one, finding better footing and a better voice that will be more representative of the people there, that they are actually weighing in with certain folks to get the right material. And that I'm more hopeful for that one, especially since Northrend is very near and dear to my heart, and I don't want anyone to be disenfranchised or any of these books to suck. But that one in particular, I really need that one to go well, because I want to enjoy that, and I want other people to enjoy it as well, and feel the same love for it that I do. But yes, on the horizon, two big books. One of them in particular may be driving us into the future, and we shall see. All right, that will do it for this episode. My thanks to all of you for listening, and remember, you can always follow me and this show on Twitter at BerserkerRage and Unshackled_Fury. You can also find our Discord links on the profile of our Twitter bio and the Warcraft Radio page. Feel free to contact the show with your questions, comments, or otherwise through any of those resources. Unshackledfury.com, or we do have an email, but nobody ever emails, so I'm just going to leave it out. And remember, you can get this show wherever you get your podcasts. So once again, thank you for listening. Remember to keep your swords wet and your banners high, and we'll see you next time. Farewell.